let's just take a second and breathe, because what just happened? Caitlin Clark didn't just make history. She rewrote the playbook, burned it, and casually handed out autographed copies to the entire WNBA. A $25 million Nike deal. $25 million. Not over a career. Not spread across 15 different sponsorships. One deal. One swoosh. And suddenly, Caitlin Clark is not just the face of women's basketball. She's the face of a movement. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. But if you think this is just another flashy sneaker contract, oh, honey, think again. Because while most athletes would pop bottles, flex in a press release, and start designing colorways with their initials stitched in gold, Caitlin did something completely different. Something unheard of. She turned the spotlight around. She didn't just say, thank you. She said, who else can I bring with me? And the answer? Sophie Cunningham. Now, pause for a moment, because this isn't just a feel-good side note. This is the moment. Caitlin Clark, fresh off negotiating one of the most groundbreaking contracts in women's sports history, used her leverage, her power, her rising superstardom. Not to isolate herself at the top, but to lift someone else up with her. And that's not just rare. That's revolutionary. But let's rewind a little, because the context here is everything. The Nike deal wasn't some overnight miracle. This was years in the making. Caitlin built her empire brick by brick. Starting back in Iowa, where she was launching logo threes before most players even crossed half court. She didn't just break records. She shattered them with style. Every game she played added another zero to her value, another layer to her legend. And when the WNBA finally got her, it was game on. Attendance? Up. Viewership? Skyrocketing. Merchandise? Sold out. And brands? Foaming at the mouth to be in her orbit. Nike wasn't just signing a player. They were signing a phenomenon. And they knew it. But here's where it gets wild. Caitlin wasn't just thinking about sneakers and signing bonuses. She came into that negotiation room with a plan and people in mind. She said, if I rise, we rise. And Sophie Cunningham? She wasn't just a teammate. She was part of that rise. Now, in a world where athletes are often told to focus on their own brand, Caitlin Clark just flipped that logic on its head. She said, your brand is stronger when it's shared. And the way she brought Sophie into fold? Flawless. Not as a pity invite. Not as a tag-along. As an equal. She told Nike, if we're doing this, it's going to mean something. It's going to stand for something. And Nike, being smart, didn't just agree. They leaned in. What followed was a joint reveal that left fans and fellow players speechless. The stage was set. The lights went down. And suddenly, a short film played, not just of Caitlin's highlight reel, but of her journey. The struggles, the injuries, the grind, the noise, the critics, and woven throughout the footage, Sophie Cunningham. There for every moment, every win, every fall, every comeback. It wasn't just a sneaker launch. It was a statement. And then, boom, the shoes dropped. Custom kicks called no backing down. Sharp edges, unapologetic lines. Embroidered inside the tongue, 2 sets of initials. Not 1, 2. CC plus SC. Now imagine being in the audience for that. Teammates frozen. Fans crying. Other players staring, mouths open, realizing this wasn't just a contract. It was a cultural reset. And then the kicker, Caitlin took the mic and made it official. This isn't about me. It's about us. About the women who got me here, who stood with me, who deserve the spotlight too. Sophie, this is your moment too. Mic drop, but she wasn't done. Because the next part, it got even bigger. Caitlin announced that part of her Nike deal would directly fund new initiatives, mentorship programs, gear donations, community courts for underfunded girls' sports teams across the country. We're not just making sneakers, she said. We're building something real. And just like that, this stopped being a sponsorship and became a movement. Let's talk about what that actually means. For decades, women's sports have been fighting tooth and nail for scraps. Less coverage, less pay, less respect. And suddenly, here comes Caitlin Clark not just cashing the biggest check, but redistributing the wealth, the influence, the entire narrative. This was no longer about one player with a killer jump shot. This was about solidarity, loyalty, sisterhood, and it sent shockwaves through the league. Suddenly, younger players weren't just looking up to Caitlin as a scorer. They were looking at her as a leader, an architect of a new kind of career, one where you don't claw your way to the top alone. You build a ladder and hand it back down, and that's the real flex. Because Caitlin Clark just proved that power in sports doesn't come from dominating everyone around you. It comes from bringing people with you. And Sophie, she didn't just get a cosign. She got her own Nike deal, her own sneaker line, her own moment to shine. That's what happens when women lead with intention, with loyalty, with the understanding that visibility isn't finite, that we all win when more people get seats at the table. And if you're thinking, well, this sounds too perfect to be true, that's exactly what makes it so rare. Because this doesn't happen in pro sports. The norm is ego, competition, and individualism. But Caitlin Clark just gave us a blueprint for what could be the future. Imagine this becoming a trend. Players using endorsement leverage to lift their teammates. Deals that go beyond one face and focus on whole communities. Influence that isn't about exclusivity, but about expansion. This is bigger than sneakers. Bigger than basketball. This is legacy. And Caitlin knows it. You could see it in the way she talked at that launch. Not about herself, but about impact. About changing the conversation. About how the kids watching at home aren't just dreaming of buzzer beaters. They're dreaming of belonging. Because here's the thing. She knows exactly what she's doing. She's not just a cultural icon. She's a strategist. Every move is calculated. Every gesture laced with meaning. And this was her loudest, most unmissable move yet. Let's not forget, this is a woman who walked into the WNBA with the weight of an entire sport on her back and said, okay, let's go. And now, she's shifting that weight onto a team, onto a mission. And somehow, she's just getting started. So, where does this go from here? Well, for starters, every brand on earth just got a new homework assignment. Do better. Because Caitlin Clark just raised the bar so high, it's doing wind sprints in the stratosphere. You want to sign a deal? Cool. But what else are you building with it? Who are you bringing with you? What's your legacy look like? What are you leaving behind for the ones coming next? Caitlin just made that the new baseline. And the league, the fans, the players, everyone's watching. And here's the kicker. Caitlin Clark doesn't need to say she's a leader. She shows it. She lives it. And if this is what leadership looks like, we are so here for it. So shout out to Caitlin Clark for shattering the glass sneaker ceiling and handing out invites to the ones behind her. Shout out to Sophie Cunningham, who didn't ask to be in the spotlight, but deserved it all along. And shout out to every little girl watching, realizing that the game isn't just changing, it's being rewritten in Caitlin's handwriting with a Nike pen. So now we want to hear from you. What do you think this means for the future of women's sports? Could this be the start of a new era? Are we finally witnessing the shift we've been waiting for? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe, because if Caitlin Clark keeps pulling off moves like this, oh, you thought that was the end? We're just getting warmed up. Because Caitlin Clark's $25 million Nike Power move wasn't just the start of a new chapter. It might be the start of a whole new league era. We're talking about a deal so massive, so symbolic, and so loaded with meaning. It is WNBA veterans blinking like they just woke up in a whole different sport. And honestly, maybe they did. Because Caitlin didn't just drop a contract and call it a day. She detonated the status quo. Quietly, strategically, and with the kind of grace that makes you forget she just out-negotiated entire front offices. Let's break this down. An 8-year, $28 million Nike partnership with $25 million guaranteed. Now remember, the average WNBA player salary hovers somewhere around the cost of one Super Bowl commercial. A number so embarrassingly low it barely scratches the surface of what these women actually bring to the table. So when Caitlin Clark, fresh out the NCAA with a backpack full of records, thinks a deal this colossal, It's not just a payday. It's a redefinition. And the entire league felt that shift. Suddenly, endorsement deals aren't just bonus checks. They're leverage. Suddenly, your value isn't measured in minutes played. It's measured in movement sparked, visibility created, culture shifted. You think GMs across the league didn't start sweating when the news broke? Caitlin didn't wait 10 years to earn her shine. She forced it into existence. And instead of hoarding it, she shared it. Let's talk more about Sophie Cunningham for a second, because her reaction alone deserves its own ESPN special. Here's a seasoned vet, someone who's put in the work, taken the hits, done the unglamorous grind of pro sports, often without the flowers she deserved. And then one day, she gets called into a Nike event and finds out. Not only is Caitlin launching a signature shoe, but she's part of the campaign. Do you know how rare that is? This isn't a league where rookies are known for lifting up vets. This isn't even a world where rising stars share spotlight on purpose. But Caitlin, she doesn't play by those rules. She said, "If I'm going to eat, my people eat too." And Sophie, she was shocked. You could see it in her face. The kind of disbelief that comes when you've been grinding for so long, you almost forget what recognition feels like. And then suddenly, you're in a Nike campaign. Your name's trending. You're on a custom sneaker box. It's not just branding. It's healing. It's justice. And Caitlin knew exactly what she was doing. Because this move, it sent a message loud and clear. Success doesn't have to be a solo sport. Let that sit with you for a second. Because if more athletes move like this, more people move like this. Imagine the ripple effect, the culture change, the doors that would open. Caitlin didn't just create a moment. She's creating infrastructure. And the real kicker, she never made it about herself. Even during the Nike event, surrounded by fans, flashing cameras, executives smiling like proud parents, Caitlin stayed focused on the mission, the community, the kids in the back rows who came not just to see a star, but to believe they could be one. She said something that night that stuck with everyone in the room. "I know what it feels like to be underestimated. So I'm going to make sure the next girl doesn't have to prove herself twice." Like, excuse me? That's not a quote. That's a manifesto. That's going on murals. And the crowd? Lost it. Players were crying. Reporters were choking back emotions they weren't prepared for. Even Nike execs looked like they wanted to start a nonprofit right there on the stage. This wasn't a deal. This was a declaration. That women's sports are not small, not niche, not cute. They are powerful, profitable, and essential. And Caitlin Clark is the living, breathing proof. Now, let's talk ripple effects, because this is not a one-person wave. It's a whole tsunami of change about to hit the WNBA, the NCAA, and frankly, every boardroom that's ever asked, "Is there a market for this?" Because suddenly, yes, there is, and it wears custom sneakers. You think this ends with Caitlin and Sophie? No. You better believe agents, brand managers, and rookie prospects are taking notes. If Caitlin can shift the narrative, so can they. This deal just opened the door for everyone behind her and slammed it shut on anyone trying to keep things small. And don't be surprised when this kind of collective bargaining becomes the new normal. We're talking power and numbers energy. Future deals where rookies negotiate not just for cash, but for community investment, teammate visibility, and league reform. Because Caitlin proved you don't need to play the game the old way to win big. You just need the guts to change it. And let's not forget the philanthropic side of this. It would have been easy for Caitlin to pocket the check, design some dope shoes, post a few Instagram stories, and call it a day. But she took a step further. She carved out part of the deal to fund girls' sports programs in underserved communities. We're talking gear, training, mentorship, travel funding, the works. Because she remembers being that kid in the gym with no lights, no air conditioning, and barely enough uniforms to go around. And now, she's making sure that next generation has what she didn't. It's legacy in motion, real-time revolution. And the fans? Oh! The fans felt it. Twitter exploded. TikTok was flooded with sneaker reaction videos. Kids lacing up imaginary Caitlin Clarks and reenacting that one three-point logo shot she hit with her eyes closed. NBA players were tweeting, Soccer stars were reposting. Entire industries were watching. And not just in admiration, in awe, because what Caitlin pulled off, that's not common. That's not PR polish. That's not media training. That's authenticity. That's leadership. That's vision. And whether you're a 12-year-old with hoop dreams, a WNBA vet looking for your moment, or a fan who just wants to see the sport grow, you felt that. So where does this go now? Anywhere Caitlin wants. That's the power of this move. She's not just shaping her own legacy. She's setting the blueprint for everyone else. And if brands are smart, they'll follow her lead, not just with money, but with intention, with inclusion, with long-term impact. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just sign a contract. She launched a movement, and it's moving fast. And you know what? For once, it doesn't feel like women's sports is begging for attention. It feels like it's commanding it. Thanks to Caitlin. Thanks to Sophie. Thanks to every athlete watching this unfold and realizing this is your time too. So what do you think? Is Caitlin Clark rewriting the future of women's basketball? Is this the moment everything changes? Because from where we're sitting, the answer's already obvious. The game? Changed. The bar? Raised. And the queen? Still just getting started. All right, let's keep it going. Because the Caitlin Clark Nike saga isn't just some flash-in-the-pan sports moment. No, this is bigger than headlines. Bigger than contracts. We're talking tectonic shift. And at the center of it all, a player who knows exactly how to use her spotlight. Not to shine alone, but to light up the entire arena. And here's the thing. Caitlin Clark didn't need to make this move. She could have inked a Nike deal, smiled for press, laced up a few exclusive kicks, and kept it pushing. Signed the check, did the shoot, reposted a promo. She could have played it safe, corporate, and completely within expectations. But since when has Caitlin Clark ever played it safe? No. What she did was take a moment that was supposed to be all about her and turn it into something that could transform the entire league. Let's talk about what's really happening here. Because while some people see a sneaker deal, others see a strategy. Caitlin Clark knows that being great on the court gets you fans. But being generational? That gets you legacy, influence, power. And when you have power, you get to decide how the story gets told. You get to decide who gets included, who gets uplifted, who gets remembered. So what does she do? She flipped the script. She took the oldest narrative in sports, the Lone Star rising to the top, and said, nah, let's do this together. That moment with Sophie Cunningham wasn't a cameo. It was a blueprint. Think about what that did, symbolically. Here's Sophie, respected, consistent, loyal, but often overlooked in favor of flashier names. She's put in the work. She's been through the grind. She's been in this league through its ups and downs, through packed arenas and empty ones. And now, she's being honored, spotlighted, respected, on the biggest endorsement stage we've ever seen in women's sports. And not because someone handed her a pity deal, but because her teammate said, you've earned this too. That's not just kindness. That's power redistribution. That's what real leadership looks like. And for the rest of the league, it was a wake-up call. Because for years, women's basketball players have been told there isn't enough. Not enough money. Not enough room. Not enough attention to go around. Be grateful for what you get. Don't rock the boat. Keep your head down. And then Caitlin Clark walks in and proves them all wrong. There is enough. There can be more. You just have to demand it and then share it. That's the part that changes everything. Because sure, it's easy to cheer for someone when they win. But it hits different when they win and pull everyone else up with them. You could see it on the faces of players watching from the sidelines. Veterans who've been hustling for years without the spotlight. Rookies still trying to find their voice. The ones who didn't get the calls, the coverage, the deals. All of them suddenly realizing it's possible now. This deal didn't just shatter the ceiling. It handed out blueprints and crowbars. And let's not forget what this means for brands. 2, because now every company that's been slow playing women's sports, every exec who said, we're just not sure there's a market, they're watching Caitlin Clark rake in record-breaking numbers and a nationwide response. She's not a risk. She's a guarantee. The only question left is, who's next? Because you know other athletes are watching, not just in basketball. We're talking soccer, gymnastics, tennis, track. The dominoes are already lining up. And Caitlin? She's the one who tipped the first one over. But here's the genius part. This isn't about building a Caitlin Clark cult of personality. She's not interested in being the only name on the marquee. She wants to build a whole stage. And the way she's doing it? Intentional, tactical, grounded. She didn't storm in demanding attention. She let her game do the talking. She built credibility, and then used it strategically, not for drama, not for headlines, but to change systems. That's rare. That's visionary. That's historic. And don't get it twisted. This isn't just about athletes helping athletes. It's about reshaping the culture. We're moving from a sports world driven by isolation and hierarchy to one defined by connection, collaboration, empowerment. You don't have to trample over others to win. You can stand with them and rise together. Caitlin Clark just proved that. Now let's talk shoes, because we haven't even scratched the surface of the actual product. The no backing down line is more than a sneaker. It's a manifesto. Sharp, bold design. Elements drawn from both Clark and Cunningham styles. A subtle nod to resilience stitched into the sole. Materials chosen for performance, yes, but also for symbolism. The first run, already selling out. Limited edition packaging includes a mini booklet titled For the Girls Who Don't Flinch. Inside are quotes from both Caitlin and Sophie, reflections on mental toughness, and even letters written by high school players who watched them growing up. Yeah, they thought of everything. Nike's not just selling shoes here. They're selling philosophy. And the fans? They get it. Because it's not just about watching greatness anymore. It's about feeling part of it. And that's what Caitlin understands better than most. The fans don't just want stars. They want leaders. They want people who make them believe that change is real. That possibility isn't just for a chosen few, it's for all of us. And here's where this gets poetic. Caitlin Clark isn't just rewriting what a sports career looks like. She's rewriting what it means to matter, not just in the league, not just in sneaker culture, but in life. She's showing that you can be competitive and kind, bold and humble, groundbreaking and grounded. That power means nothing if it's not used for something bigger than yourself. And the best part? She's just getting started. This deal, this moment, it's not a peak. It's a launch pad. The WNBA will never be the same. The brand world will never be the same. And every young athlete watching Caitlin Clark claim her space and share it will never forget this moment. So what now? Now we see what happens when others follow her lead, when mentorship becomes the standard, when solidarity becomes the expectation, when contracts come with clauses for community. That's the new model. That's the next era. And Caitlin Clark just drew the blueprint in bright, bold lines. So buckle up, because if you thought a $25 million deal was the end game, think again. This isn't the final boss battle. This is an origin story. And Caitlin Clark? She's not just a player anymore. She's a movement. So sound off in the comments. Who do you think she'll team up with next? What brand should follow Nike's lead? Which athlete deserves their own moment? And as always, subscribe, stay tuned, and keep your notifications on. Because if Caitlin Clark has taught us anything, it's that greatness doesn't walk. It explodes.